All right, let's talk a bit about remediation and planetary magic for remediary purposes. Now, on this channel, I want to preface by saying that I don't go really in depth into ceremonial magic or any form of magic in particular. This is not the channel for that. There are plenty of channels nowadays in the year of 2024 for such purposes. This isn't really one of them. Although I do have to admit that I do have my fair share of experiences in planetary magic and remediation, along with other forms of ceremonial magic, albeit I wouldn't necessarily call planetary magic a form of Western ceremonial magic in the proper sense of, say, Golden Dawn or Thelema or Neo-Enochiana and even original John D. Enochian. Anyways, I will digress and talk about astrological remediation. So, there's a common concept out there, or a common sort of opinion, that your sorcery or thaumaturgical practices should be accompanied with theurgy, and some will even argue that thaumaturgy is simply a supplement to theurgy. It should not be your primary practice. Rather, theurgy should be your primary practice, as your purposes of getting into the occult and magic should be to become closer to the divine and to attain spiritual development. And I will have to say that I do agree with the majority of those statements that I just made and about those opinions, particularly the first one, not so much the second one. Now, I will agree that it is perfectly fine to get into the occult for purposes of thaumaturgy or thaumaturgical purposes per se. That's perfectly fine. And I think that it's even a good motivating factor for that. I would even argue that doing remediation for such purposes is fine, and calling upon the gods for such purposes is fine. There's nothing wrong with materialism. And likewise, I will have to say that one should keep a good relation with the divine. So that's kind of where I agree on the part of keeping theurgy the majority of your practice, or simply just connecting to the divine. Now, I could argue, and some will argue, that, say, ancestral veneration and other forms of what is commonly known as sorcery or necromancy or even divination can fall into theurgy, even though most people would consider that to be thaumaturgy. One can do divination for spiritual growth. One can do ancestral veneration for spiritual growth and to connect to the divine. But anyways, no shit. Fucking pop-ups. Whatever. So yeah, there is that. And I would even argue that meditation can be done for both purposes. Now, as far as remediation and planetary magic goes, I did explain in my video previously that things tend to go not as expected, and that's kind of part of the course. So in this part 2 and 3, I will kind of explain why as a sorcerer you kind of want things to go your way, and you want things to turn out the way that you expect them to be, and not particularly going into another correspondence that you don't particularly want, if that makes sense. However, you kind of don't want to expect it per se. So it's kind of a fine line where you sort of have to want and intend for something, but not really intend for it. Just kind of let the divine play itself out, per se. Let life play itself out. So, for instance, if, say, you want to do a Mars remediation to, say, do some kind of invigoration, like, for instance, healing or revival magic, and I'm going to be very careful on using those terms as I don't want anything that I say to be misconstrued by the redacted community and or for me to be considered redacted and or redacted. I digress. So, with remediation, say the example I gave of Mars remediation for, say, improving one's physical vitality, one's strength, athletic ability, motivation, and whatnot. You can do sort of that kind of remediation, but you don't necessarily not want to get another correspondence to Mars that you may not want. And that other correspondence can be obsessiveness or aggression or just getting pissed off really easily. Particularly if Mercury is in the mix, that latter part can happen. And there's a heat warning on my computer, so I'm not sure if that's because of the weather outside, because I live in fucking Arizona, or just because of the fact of something else, or I need to recharge, or what it is. But that will be it for now, and take care. That hopefully does it for part 2 and 3. And, well, actually, psych, I'm staying here for probably another more minute or two. So, the same goes for Venus. Um, yeah, no, when Saturn and Mercury are in the mix of things, you kind of can't really not want the effects that you don't want to have. I know that sounds confusing, but in other words, you kind of have to be a bit counterintuitive with magic. And I know I think it's not Leo in longevity. What's his name? Leo from Self-Actualized, or Leo from Actualized.org, if I am not mistaken. I don't think I can include a link, so I'll just have to leave it at that. And I think that'll be it. So take care and let's sign out. I hope we all had a great time watching this video and listening to me ramble on about remediation and planetary magic, along with just kind of having to be counterintuitive with one's desires, as to not allow the finickiness of the bitch we call life to overpower us. And this time, we're really signing off.